All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Chapter 7. This chapter is going to be focusing on guest communication and things we can do to better talk to our tables and let them know that we're there for them. So, providing exceptional customer service. All right, this is pretty much why we're here. This is what we strive to do in every interaction. So, the goal here is we're trying to exceed guest expectations in a professional, friendly, competent, and timely manner. We do this by making an emotional or empathetical connection to the guest. That said, there are two main types of guests that you need to look out for out there in the real world, and those are the feed the need guests versus the read the need guests. So, feeding, these are people that like to eat quickly, they want you to keep pace, they don't necessarily need all the frills associated with formal service or guiding them through the menu. Maybe they've been there multiple times, or maybe they just they're on a time crunch, or just for whatever reason they don't really necessarily care about your interaction with them. They consider you to be an order taker, and they just get their order in, they want to eat, and then they want to leave. So recognize that you may not need to pay as much attention to those guests, and they may consider it to be rude or unnecessary. So the next one is the read the need guests. Okay, these are people that are ready to relax, enjoy a more leisurely paced meal. In general, they probably want you to go through your normal spiel and explain the menu and the different categories and what the specials are and what you like most about it, maybe the concept of the restaurant, and then really take your time, helping them plan a multi-course dinner, something like that, or just spending time answering any questions that they may have. In general, they're going to take more attention, not saying that they are necessarily needier than the feed the need people, but they are there to experience the full service of the restaurant, and so you will spend a little bit more time at the table with them. So those are the main differences that you need to kind of look out for the two types of guests, okay? So tableside introductions, this is something, when you're first going up to a table, this is what we're talking about. So you need to be genuine and original with each guest. I mean, obviously there's a spiel here that we are trying to, get out of your system and so you can let them know about. Well, we'll talk about it here on the expectations line, but what the goal is, you don't want to just say the exact same script to every table because you don't want to be a robot, right? So the expectation is you're going to go up to a table, you're going to introduce yourself. So, hello, my name is Jacob. Ask how the guest is or are, how's the table doing. You could ask what brings them in, if they've dined in the restaurant before, just something a little bit of small talk to kind of get the conversation open. You can then talk about the concept of the restaurant if appropriate. This is especially appropriate if they have never been to the restaurant before, or maybe it's a group of 4 and 2 of them have been there before and they love it, and then the other 2 have not been. That's a good time to talk about, just a quick synopsis of what you're all about. And then you're going to explain the specials or any soups of the day. So really any daily items is what we're talking about here. And then the next one, the most important line here, is you're going to inform guests of any 86 items that you know about. Think about how frustrating it is if you've dined out before and you're ready to order and the server takes your order for the whole table and you think all is good, and then within 30 seconds to a minute later the server comes back and says, oh, you know what, we're actually out of that. Sorry. Okay, that's very embarrassing. In general, we cover the 86 items at pre-shift, right, or low count items, so there should be really no reason that the server doesn't know that. So what you do as the server is you say, something along the lines of, okay, so soup of the day, it's a chili and whatever, vegetable curry, and I did want to let you know before your heart gets set on it, we're out of the Niçoise salad today. That lets the guests know just right away in a very polite manner, okay, just don't expect to order that item because it's out. And then they know and they appreciate, knowing that in the beginning. Because what happens is if you don't tell them something that's 86 and they order it, now they're scrambling to look at the menu to find something else to order while everyone else at the table has either already ordered or at least they know what they want. So that puts more pressure on the guest and they're, anxious and frustrated with you. Okay, so then the last thing we're going to do is offer a beverage other than water. Breakfast and lunch and brunch, definitely right away. Dinner, it's appropriate to offer a non-alcoholic beverage right away. But if you're getting to the table within that first like minute or two, like you should be, um, you know, for most people, that's not enough time to peruse the alcoholic drink menu, and so you may want to back off and, in that situation, change your verbiage from, I can get you something other than water, but I'd love to give you more time to look over that drink menu as well. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll check back in a minute. And that then gives them time to look at the cocktails and the beer, or maybe, look over the wine list and see what looks good to them. So, to summarize all this, when guests trust you, they are more likely to purchase appetizer, entree, dessert, and beverage suggestions that you provide to them, right? Which is the whole point. So, server enthusiasm. Want to make sure that you are smiling and well-groomed, walking quickly with good posture through the dining room floor, that you're alert and attentive to guests' needs, being friendly, tactful, and tolerant, poised and composed, okay? Speak clearly and distinctly to tables. You don't want to be rushed or mumbled. And always know why you're doing what you're doing, all right? So there's always something to be doing, either taking something out to the floor or bringing something back. Don't be wandering around the front of house, aimlessly when guest needs may need to be met. So you either need to be doing something or you need to be looking like you're doing something. All right, so some different types of guests and how to handle them. The procrastinator. I think this maybe is a little bit of all of us on some days. So this is a guest that cannot make up their mind. You need to practice your suggestive selling techniques and provide 2 to 3 options for them to choose from. This is, really dig in and, ask them, what are you in the mood for? What haven't you had in a while? Those kinds of things, and then narrow something down. The skeptic. So this is someone that's going to be doubtful of food quality or how it's prepared. They may be fussy or want things prepared a very particular way. They're going to test your knowledge, your menu knowledge about ingredients and maybe cooking preparations and allergies and all these types of things. So you need to be positive with this person and very reassuring, okay? And there's a whole, maybe the person is just skeptic in general, which is, fine if that's their personality, or it could be a guest, or a returning guest that has had a poor experience at your establishment before, and this is maybe their second or third time, and so they're just skeptical because of past experiences. In that case, again, you need to do everything in your power to make sure that their order is correct, and you're being reassuring and letting them know that you're there to take care of them, and then follow through. And when the food's ready, make sure it is accurate and hot or cold, depending on what kind of item it is, and express sincerity when dropping it off. So the center backer, this one kind of ties into the skeptic a little bit. So this is someone that's going to be sending back the food. You need to understand the guest complaint, which we kind of talked about already in our service recovery chapter. You need to give them exactly what they want, demonstrate desire to get every detail correct. The guest will be impressed if you can succeed in a difficult situation, right? So they're sending something back to the kitchen, an item needs to be fixed. Just make sure you're listening to exactly how they want it fixed. Try to make it timely. Make sure it's correct before you drop it off. And then, double check with them to make sure it's up to their expectations. The older guest. So a little bit of extra care goes into serving elderly guests. You need to help them with menu navigation or maybe understanding some of the concepts on your menu. You need to work with them to find smaller portions of items if they so request. There are a lot of more chain restaurants that will offer like a 65 plus menu, and it's cheaper prices but also smaller portion sizes, because as you get older your appetite decreases. So if they're specifically asking for that, don't point them to huge expensive entrees if that's not what they're asking for. All right, the child. So we already talked about, in I think it was chapter 5, about how the child needs to be treated like an adult, and that's still true in the ordering process. But just remember that taking care of the children is taking care of the adult companion that's with them. So we need to ask parents if a high chair, booster, or other assistance is needed with the child. And we don't want to try to, offend anyone if you think they're too old. So there is kind of that awkward age where you don't really know if they need a children's menu or not. But you still ask anyway. And another thing we like to do is ask the parents or guardians if they would like the kids' food out first. What this does is, kids who are hungry and griping that that their stomachs growling and stuff like that. If you can get their food that's usually easy to prepare, like chicken fingers or PB&J or whatever it is, if you can get that out first and get them fed and full and happy, they're going to be calm for the rest of the meal, and the parents are going to have a much better time at your establishment. So again, taking care of the kids' needs is taking care of the parents' needs, and then the theory is that then they will take care of you with the gratuity. The wise guy or gal. This is someone that's going to seek attention and can definitely be irritating. This person may be degrading, tell rude jokes, ask you inappropriate questions, like for a phone number, for a date, or whatever it is, something that's inappropriate. So you need to be polite and firm with this person. Try to ignore the comments, remain professional, but don't stay at the table any longer than needed. Okay, these people, in my experience, you tend to run into them more at bar service than in restaurant service. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the restaurant, because it does, but in general, these people tend to come out of their shell a little bit more in the bar setting. So that said, if you ever do come across someone that is just a little too over the top and is really being degrading and you feel uncomfortable, that's a good time to let your manager know, and maybe that manager will either replace or switch a different server with yourself on that table, or maybe the manager will handle that table on their own, or if the situation is bad enough, we can always ask the guest to leave and not come back. So then you have the talker. All right, this is the polite version of the wise guy. So someone that just likes to talk and talk and talk. I have a couple guests in mind that frequent our restaurant when I'm thinking about this, and they're very nice people, but they just want to tell you their life story, and while that's fine and dandy, you just don't have time for that as a server. There's lots of things you need to worry about. You have other tables on the floor, and if you're spending 10 to 15 minutes with one particular guest, hearing them out, and then you're ignoring your other responsibilities and your other tables, and so service there is declining. And while you're probably going to get a great tip with that talker, maybe, your gratuity is slowly dwindling from your neglect of your other patrons. So it's important to keep answering with short answers. Try to keep busy. Don't go over there unless needed. And it's always appropriate, if you absolutely have to dismiss yourself from the table and just politely let them know, hey, I'll be back when I can. I'd love to hear more about this. I need to go run food to this other table, or I have some other duties I need to do real quick. Thank you so much for your understanding. I'll check on your food. Something like that, just to break you away and move on with your responsibilities. All right, the silent type. So this is a shy and soft-spoken individual. You need to smile, make them feel comfortable. All right, kind of goes along with the procrastinator. Dieter. This is someone that may want to know about healthy options or substitutions. It could also be someone that, not necessarily is trying to lose weight or try to be healthy, but it could be like halal or kosher. Or it could be an allergy restriction, such as celiac, which is gluten-free or dairy-free, egg-free, whatever these are. These are all diets, right? So you need to know. Let me rephrase this: the more you know about your menu up front to help these guests, the better, right? If they say, "Hey, I have this issue, what can you do?" and you spew out like 3 or 4 solutions right there tableside, that's impressive, and their confidence is built in you. But if you say, oh, I don't really know, let me go ask the kitchen, and then, that takes 5 to 7 minutes, and then you come back, and then, maybe the guest has another question, and you have to go back, that's not really instilling a lot of confidence in the guest, right? So they're thinking, man, the server doesn't really know what's going on, so maybe does the kitchen know what's going on, and, is it safe for me to eat here? Those types of things. Obviously, there are going to be situations that arise where you're not going to know the answer, and that's okay. You just need to remain positive and really follow through with the questions and let them know that the kitchen has it handled, you have it handled. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. We're going to make sure it's right. So again, here, if impossible to satisfy the need, you need to try to turn the guest to alternative options. Whether that's they're really trying to modify a dish that just can't be modified, so you have to turn them to a different entree, or if for some reason, the kitchen just can't produce something that's safe for them to eat, then you maybe need to try to refer them to a different establishment, right? Because the worst thing you can do is, if you know it's going to be bad, is to try to lure them in and then serve them something that's just so inadequate that you're going to lose their business or just make them upset and feel worthwhile, or like their visit was not worthwhile, right? So we don't want to do that. All right, the coffee drinker, this is also called camping, right? So this is someone that orders maybe just a drink or something light and then sits there for hours on end in your section, which is taking up your real estate. So if this person's sitting there for 3 or 4 hours, you maybe could have had 2 to 3 guests in that same slot, which is losing you money. So you got to feel this out, feel the day out. If it's slow and you didn't really need that table anyway, that's one situation. We should always try to suggestively sell to this guest. More food, check in with them, make sure they're doing okay. And if necessary, if you need the table for another reservation or another party, it is acceptable under certain conditions to ask that guest to maybe, move to the bar environment, or if you're in a hotel environment, you could ask them to move to the lobby. That would be a situation, and we've done that at the class act, right? Passport nights, or nights with special events. If people are they come in for a late afternoon coffee and then it's running into our dinner hour and we need that table, it's reserved. So we have to politely ask them to please move and maybe serve them in a different location. Right, excuse me, the budgeter. This is either someone or a group of people that are on a budget, right? So we need to not upsell. And the whole point of this class is teaching you how to suggestively sell anyway and not upsell. So especially true here, we don't want to try to push them to more expensive things. If they say they're on a budget, or you can tell when you're asking them what they're in the mood for, they're sticking to the cheaper options. Don't try to sway them to something more expensive. They're going to see right through that. Okay, people that are on a budget are already very consciously aware of people that are trying to swindle them. So don't do it, okay? Find something in their budget range. Most likely, these people have their set budget in mind includes a gratuity for you. So if you're trying to blow the roof on that and increase your guest check average, that may result in them, buying those items, but then having less gratuity for you at the end of the day. So you're really just harming yourself, right, in that capacity. A good example of this is it could be anyone, right? So guests come out to the restaurant, maybe they haven't, they hit hard times, and this is the first time they've come out with their family, in a year, so that's a special occasion, so we don't know that, but maybe it's also, the high schoolers for prom or homecoming, and, it's their first time in a nicer environment, and they're ordering, the soups and salads and the sandwiches at dinner, but, you also have to think about it. If you take care of this person that's on a budget now and you make them feel welcome, that invites them to come back in the future. And, maybe they're in the future, they are in a better financial situation and they want to spend more money. Or, maybe down the line, those high school students, eventually they're going to get engaged and maybe married in your hotel. And so they'll remember, hey, we had that great time, back senior year of prom. Let's go back to the hotel at Kirkwood Center. They took great care of us. Whereas if we were like, we don't want your business because it's just not even worth it. Your ticket average is like $12 at dinner and we're not making any money. You're going to be like, wow, that place was really snooty. They didn't really want us there. Let's never go back. So you just never know, right? You never know when you're dealing with a situation that could make you more money in the future, which is why you just have to treat everyone equally and with respect and in a hospitable manner. So guests with special needs, this is our last one. This is a very broad spectrum, but it's really anyone that just needs a little bit more assistance than other people. So it could be someone in a wheelchair, that needs special seating needs. It could be someone that is blind or deaf, mute, it doesn't matter. Any kind of accessibility issues in the restaurant. This is it's kind of like the elderly. You're going to want to spend a little bit of extra time with this guest to make sure that they fully understand everything on the menu, or if they need assistance reading through the menu, or maybe maybe they're not blind, but just, hard of sight, and the restaurant's dim at night. Can we get them a flashlight, or can we temporarily turn up the lights, or, use your phone to illuminate it, or read through the menu with them, stuff like that. So you want to make sure if you're handling one of these guests that, the manager is aware, so that the extra time you're spending at the table doesn't take away from your other guest responsibilities on the floor, and someone can fill in and help you with those. All right, so nonverbal cues and prompts, menus, setting menus off to the side, closing them, turning them upside down. That's a good indication that the guest is ready to order or they need attention, so you should get over there ASAP. Napkins, guests will unfold napkins and put on their lap when they're ready to order. That one, okay, a little bit. These days, I think a lot of people do that right away when they get to the restaurant. They sit down and they just immediately do that, even though they haven't even looked at the menu. But if you notice that, their menu's off to the side and they put their napkin on their lap, then okay, definitely it's time for you to get over there. What is more common that I see is that when the meals are complete, they may place the napkin on the plate, right? So if they had their entree and their napkin's now on the plate, that's a really good indication that they are definitely finished and probably ready for you to either try to sell them a dessert, or they are ready for the check and to get out of there. Looking around, this is another very true indicator that the guest needs something. Maybe they're trying to find the restroom. Maybe they need something at the table, table maintenance related. So maybe water, or whatever it is. You forgot to drop a fork. You need to get over there. Okay, that's the theme here with all these things. So especially with the looking around, they definitely need something. Okay, this can be hard in open kitchen environments like the class act, where they can see into the kitchen through the glass. So they do look around from time to time because they like to see what's going on. And, we're a school, so we have students and whatnot, and that's fun for them. So I do catch myself going to tables quite frequently in the class act that are looking around. They're like, oh, no, we're fine. We're just checking it out. So that's our own kind of personal struggle. If you work in another restaurant that has an open kitchen, I'm sure you will or have witnessed that yourself. But it's always good to go check on that anyway. You don't want to assume that they don't need something and then ignore it, because then you're going to be doing service recovery later. All right, so some guidelines for suggesting items. Beverages, we're always going to try to suggest these in a pair of two, meaning a non-alcoholic offering and an alcoholic offering. Use common sense with this. Okay, this is more of a brunch, lunch, and dinner thing, i.e., you're not going to go into breakfast Monday through Friday with business travelers offering a Bloody Mary or a beer with their coffee, So just use common sense, okay? With this one, maybe in the morning, offer, a coffee or tea with a juice. That would be a good way to offer two items, but maybe not one of them being alcohol. But, at night or at lunch, you always want to say, we have, Coke products, iced tea, coffee. We also have a full bar. That's a great way you sneak in both of those, okay? Appetizers should be suggested in pairs. So explain something that's popular, something that you like, but also you need to read the need of the table, right? So if you have very small tapas that are shared between 2 or 3 people, but you're serving a group of 12, maybe suggest the appetizers that share well, like hummus or nachos, something that can be easily passed around, or a charcuterie board, right? Do things that make sense for the group. Entrees should start with finding out guest preferences. We've talked about that a million times, right? So you want to ask them what they're in the mood for, what they haven't had in a while. Make a couple suggestions based off that. Desserts can be suggested by the menu or a dessert cart or tray. We talked about that in our, what chapter was that? I can't remember. It was like 3 or 4 when we talked about different types of service. The dessert cart where everything is either pre-prepared or it's a sample of what can be brought out. So explain what your favorite is and why. Personally, mine is always the chocolate desserts because I'm a chocoholic, and I explain that and make a little joke, and people laugh because I'm like, yes, I'm a self-admitted chocoholic, so these are my 2 favorite desserts. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't, because some people don't like chocolate. So then you suggest things that aren't chocolate. So after dinner drinks, coffee, espresso, those are both popular, both regular or decaf options. Digestif liqueurs, and then maybe they just want a shot of Bailey's or Fernet or Campari or something like that. All right, so the 3 times to suggestively sell. I mean, there's more than 3 times to suggestively sell. These are the 3 best times to suggestively sell, okay? So the first one here is when taking the guest's order, you're going to suggest items to go along with that. When reading back when reading back the order for accuracy, you can suggest. So, okay, you had this, the New York strip medium rare. Would you like a glass of Cabernet with that? That's what we're talking about there. And then the last one is before finalizing the guest check, suggest if appropriate. All right, so if you approach the table and the guest is just very adamant that they need to get out and they would like the check right away, that's probably not the best time for you to try to suggestively sell a dessert or an after dinner drink. Again, if they're being very adamant, but if you go up and they're done with their entree, and there doesn't seem to be a huge time crunch or whatnot, you absolutely need to suggest, and this is where we're talking about like desserts and those after dinner drinks, stuff like that. Okay, so read the need. Dining room showmanship, serving certain items with flair or excitement by demonstrating a special technique. I think we talked about this with French service and the flambe cart, okay? But really, you don't need a flambe cart or even a tableside prep station to do tableside showmanship. This could be as simple as bringing out, an entree that needs a broth and pouring the broth into the bowl tableside, or doing some kind of garnish tableside. Think about when you go out and you order a salad and they offer either Parmesan cheese on it or fresh grated black pepper tableside. That's tableside showmanship. It's anything that's drawing attention to the dish, right, that you're doing, that the service staff is doing tableside. So again, this usually results in guests asking about the item and likely ordering it from table to table. So flambe dishes, tableside salads, dessert cards, yes, they all fall in this category, of course, but again, it can be just simpler techniques and a little demonstration of flair. Doesn't have to be huge and ornate, okay? It's just anything that you're bringing to the table to really finish the dish. Okay, so emergency situations. Incidents regarding food allergy reactions have increased over time, right? And I think we all know that to be true as more and more allergies become relevant in today's dining landscape. They can be mild or fatal, right? So something mild to be, just maybe a skin irritation or an inflammation of the throat or some slightly heavier breathing. That would be mild. Something worse than that could be a guest going unconscious, or of course fatal, or suffering something very bad internally or bleeding, something like that. Okay, so we always need to double check allergy issues and communicate with the back of house and expo. Guests are usually pretty good about telling you what their allergies or dietary restrictions are ahead of time. And so if they do, if they let you know right away as you're doing your tableside introduction or as they're ordering, you need to tell the kitchen that ASAP. Like don't wait to ring in the ticket and then say, hey, this guest has this whatever allergy. If you knew about it before. If you know about it, you should go back and tell them before the guest even orders, hey, kitchen or expo, a guest at table 5 is allergic to cilantro or whatever it is. It's bad. Well, what can we do? And the chef either says, okay, we can do it or we can't do it. And if they can do it, then they probably start making a safe space for that right away so that they're prepared when that ticket comes in. All right. So the more prepared we are, the better we are, better equipped we are to handle that guest. Okay. So if the guest falls ill, notify the manager immediately. Someone needs to try to stay with the guest in order to attend to any needs. You should try to bring out obviously water, make sure they have water. Maybe a cold towel would be appropriate. Okay. We can try to assist them with, getting to the bathroom. I'm not saying you have to go into the bathroom with them, but you can help them get there if necessary. Okay. Point them in the right direction. Just ask them what they need. If it's bad enough, we can ask them if requesting emergency services is required, meaning calling 911, okay? Again, if they are responsive, this should very much be their decision, okay? Don't have a knee-jerk reaction and call 911 if someone is, just has a slight rash or something. They're like, no, I'm fine. Or, maybe they have an EpiPen or whatever and they want to handle it themselves, okay? we need to still be there, keep an eye on the situation. But 100% of the time, if the guest is unresponsive, meaning they're not conscious, okay, yes, call 911 100% of the time, okay? And maybe they just fall unconscious for a few seconds or whatever it is, and they come back, still the right call to get the the EMTs on scene, okay? So that's really a synopsis of that. Just really listen to the guest. You don't want to be partially paying attention to a table that's telling you about their allergies and then have a mess up later. So just be open. If you have questions regarding an allergy, meaning, I think the chef can do it. Don't assume and then ring in the ticket and then have to go back to the table. This is a good time to really have transparent communication between the guest and the kitchen. So if you need to make multiple trips back and forth to make sure you can handle something or make the food safely, that is better than guessing and ending up wrong and, harming a guest. Okay. I think that's all I have for emergency situations. Just do the right thing. Make sure that if someone is, they are suffering or if they're falling ill, that you're staying with them and, not making them feel alone. Okay. All right. And that's all I have for chapter 7. Okay, I lied. I have one more thing on this. So, go through these steps, right? Make sure they're okay. And then the last step that I didn't put on this screen is obviously you or restaurant management are going to try to provide some kind of service recovery in the situation, okay? Because maybe we did mess up, and if we did mess up, we go all the way back to, the first couple chapters where we talked about honesty, and we need to let them know that we messed up. But if we truly didn't mess up, okay, and we know that, we need to have open communication with the guest, and, maybe they'll talk to their medical provider, and maybe they've discovered a new allergy, or there was something that they just weren't, there was a chemical interaction between something on the dish, whatever it is, and then we can learn from that, okay? But the point is, we need to offer service recovery, be open with the guests after this has transpired, and let them know that we have their best interest at heart, and we're very sorry, and we hope that they can come back. But this, along with finding a foreign object in food, can be very difficult to recover from, because the guest is going to lose a lot of faith in our ability to produce something that they can eat. So anyway, food for thought. That's all I have on emergency situations.